Welcome to the Deconstructing Data podcast and live stream. I'm Jessie Lezak, fractional CMO at BDEX, along with BDEX's founder and CEO, David Finkelstein. David, I feel like it's been a minute since it's been you and I back on the show. What's new?
Yeah, Jesse, it has, and I'm glad to be back. And it was great seeing you, by the way, a couple of weeks ago here in Florida. So, it was good to spend some time with you and get a chance to regroup and plan together. And it's good to be back on the show. It's been too long.
Absolutely. It really was. Thank you so much for having me on Sanibel Island. It was a great experience to be able to just ride along the island and see, what we've been hearing from you all these months about what's been happening with the hurricanes and stuff there. So thank you so much. And I'm so excited for the future of BDEX. We have so much to look forward to. But we have a really great guest to come on today. So today, we get to welcome on Rajiv Khaneja. He is the CEO and the founder of AdButler. Welcome to the show, Rajiv.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're really glad you could join us today, Rajiv. And I would love for you to kick it off a little bit and give our viewers and our listeners a little chance to get to know you a little bit. So why don't you kind of share your story, how you became founder and CEO of AdButler, and what you guys are doing today.
Yeah, so my story starts way back in the 90s, sort of .com 1.0, when I was sort of messing around on the internet as a teenager and ended up creating a bunch of different sort of SaaS applications. That first big one was polling software. It was kind of the first way to add a poll to a website, and a bunch of other stuff. And all of that stuff was freemium, so you could pay for it, but there was also an ad-supported side to it. So I ended up having billions of ads to manage. And back then, ad servers were pretty simple. So instead of paying for one, I was like, oh, I'll create my own ad server. So that was super useful for us. We used it internally. And I thought, hey, other people might be interested in this too. So we sort of put it out in the world. And it turns out, yeah, other people were interested. So over the years, it wasn't really a core focus, but we had a team of engineers that just continually built the product. And it was very much a product-led company. We would focus on users' needs and what users were asking for and continually build out the product. Fast forward, I think like 29 years now, which is crazy to think about. Along the way, it turned into a real company with leadership and management and sales and marketing and all the other stuff you expect for a real company. But we still very much focus on product. And now we're focusing more on AI-driven tools, a lot of data stuff. But yeah, that's summarizing 29 years into a very quick statement. That's sort of how it happened.
Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, my story is not too different, having started in the ISP business and then, sort of segueing that into the ad tech business and now in the data business. So it's a wonder our paths have finally crossed after all these years.
Oh yeah, so you get it then, yeah.
Oh, this was meant to be. And yeah, it like the topics are perfectly in alignment with the classic BDEX topics that I feel like we haven't really gotten into specifically in this new age. I mean, we get into like the little niche things here and there, but to really go back and to talk about first party data. And as we were talking about pre-show, when we're talking about first party data, we typically are talking about first party customer data, but there's all types of first party data. Do you want to start off and kick off this topic about AI driven micro targeting using first party data, but then specifically about the type of first party data you're using?
Sure. Yeah. So, as everybody knows in ad tech, different terms mean different things to different people. So, we all have an understanding of first party data, again, being that customer data you're talking about, data that people, often personally identifiable data, demographic data, stuff like that. But there's a whole world of other data that's in the past been overlooked. And this data is behavioral data. And what I mean by that is it's the data of the behaviors that a user has when they interact with content, whether that's a website or an app or different content. And that's, what are people interested in? What are they clicking on? What are they reading? How long are they reading it? What are they scrolling to? If it's a retailer, what are they adding to their cart? All sorts of data that right now traditionally is not collected. And that gives you a big insight into what that user might be interested in. And what we're doing now is we're looking at that data, and we realized we can take that and create these micro segments. So a good way to think about it is, it's really easy to think about on, say, a retailer's website. If a user is browsing a retailer and they happen to be looking at television, and they click on 5 or 6 televisions and they spend 2 or 3 minutes reading them, we have a pretty good idea that they're have an intent of buying a television. So we can add them to a micro segment as a user that has intent to buy a television. So we're not collecting personally identifiable information. It's anonymized. We're essentially adding them to a micro segment. So it's very privacy friendly. We're not dealing with PII, and what we're able to do is offer those micro segments to enrich all of their experiences across multiple different channels. So whether that's programmatic or direct sold or self-serve, these segments can be used in all those different contexts.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, we are talking, I love sort of like the concept that everyone can now become sort of like as powerful as Amazon with their targeting, right? And if I'm searching for one product, you can recommend another product that's in the same category, based on my behaviors while I'm at the site, sort of democratizing Amazon's capabilities to everybody, right? And giving them more power in this sort of micro-targeting environment. We spoke earlier, before going live about that, but you also sort of shared, some other types of publishers and things like that that could benefit from that. Why don't you share that with our listeners as well?
Yeah, so it's easy to think about this in the retailer context, but anytime a user is interacting with content, they're expressing some behavioral cues. So, another great example might be a newspaper. So newspapers tend to have lots of different content. There's, sports and business and finance and different content, and different users are going to be interested in different things. So we might be able to understand that this particular user is more interested in sports. And that might be valuable to an advertiser selling tickets to the next hockey game. But you might even go more granular than that. They might be really interested in not just sports, but they're really interested in golf. Or there might be another user who suddenly becomes interested in mortgage rates. And, if they're spending a lot of time digging through the finance section of the newspaper and looking at what's happening in the housing market and mortgage rates, we can identify that and add them into a segment so that potentially banks can send them their offers. So it could be really useful in terms of lifting revenue for things like newspapers, but also user-generated content. So you think of online forums, anywhere where there's a heterogeneous diversity of content, and users can express interest in different content versus other content.
Yeah, that's great. I see sort of a world where we're starting to use AI in a lot more creative ways than just sort of the generative AI that everybody is sort of exposed to on an everyday basis. We're constantly talking about and digging around and finding and talking to people like yourself that are doing some really creative things with AI that is improving ad targeting and improving all kinds of processes and things like that, sort of, in a whole different way than a lot of people think about AI today, because most people just think of it as generating content or generating images and things like that. So it's appreciate what you guys are doing and helping sort of advance other types of technologies and processes, especially in the ad tech world.
Yeah, it's really, AI does get pigeonholed a little bit now with large language models taking up, a lot of the attention. But it's always it's really adding intelligence. I mean that's the name, artificial intelligence. So traditionally you might have done something similar with keywords, but AI is just 1,000 times better at it, right? If you imagine actually having intelligence and understanding what a product might be versus humans trying to label it with keywords, you're just going to get 1,000 times better result.
Yeah, I mean, years ago, you speak of keywords. So years ago, I owned a company called Contextual Ads, which was, not too different than what you're talking about, but it was using keywords, right? We were basically looking at the context of a website and what someone was reading. And we were determining what were the most relevant keywords related to that content. And we were basically helping, advertisers use those keywords to retarget people. But obviously now with the ability to use AI, we can sort of improve on that level of targeting.
And I think
sorry, go ahead.
Well, I don't want to cut off the topic because I was going to sort of transition us, but so do you want to react to what David just said?
Yeah, just quickly, like some of the retailers we work with have hundreds of thousands of SKUs. And, for the example of a television, or maybe that's not a great example, but there's lots of products out there where keywords just won't capture the actual behavioral intent of the user. So if they're going and looking at a particular product, I remember there was actually a great example where it was a big retailer and somebody was looking at corn waffles or something like that, corn pancakes. And with the keyword situation, it was putting them in a contextual category of like foot corns, like medicated foot pads, because they're both corn, right? And AI would understand the difference, right? Like this is actually, they're actually looking at frozen food, not medication. So it's just a lot smarter.
Yeah, I remember that in my Contextual Ads days, we had literally a list of keywords that would come up that were, and I don't remember them, we're talking, 11, 12 years ago, that were specific keywords kind of like in that context where they had more than one meaning for different types of products. And we had to sort of flag them and say, okay, well, if this word comes up, like we can't use it, or we have to have some other context with it in order to know whether to target it. Otherwise you could be completely, retargeting somebody, totally way off.
And the other thing that we're sort of doing that does also add a lot more value is by creating these targetable segments, we're actually able to follow users through the site. So if they had expressed interest in, let's say memory foam mattresses, but now they were back on the homepage of the site, or they were on a totally different page, we would still deliver them offers that would match with their actual with memory foam mattresses. So it allows you to sort of keep track and build the segmented profile on users and deliver them the highest value offer, even if they've moved on to a different section.
Absolutely. So the part I thought was really interesting of what you were talking about earlier, that I think actually marketers need to be paying attention to more. I mentioned it in my own newsletter this week because there was an article about it. I think you called it passive consumption. And in terms of like the behavioral data, having no clicks and how you're able to track that. Did I understand that correctly? Could you go into that a little bit more? Like, because zero click is becoming something that I think more marketers need to understand, because we've been marketing to clicks, but these days we can market toward behaviors without clicks.
Yes, essentially, we're able to see what the user's doing on the site in sort of really granular fashion. So, if you imagine like a bit of content and the user's scrolling through it, we can see where they stop scrolling, what they're looking at, and what they're engaging with in a really granular way. So we're not relying on the traditional signals, right? And being able to build like a richer, more full picture of what that user is actually expressing interest in. And then we're also able to look at that and compare that with other users. So we can look at their behavior and match it to other users that have, let's say, completed an action that we want them to complete. So what that might look like is purchasing something or filling out a form. And we can say, oh, users who did purchase this product or did fill out this form, they expressed these interests, and we can match that with users who have yet to complete that, and then predict how likely they are to be receptive to a particular offer.
So interesting. And it's way more advanced now, because it's not just like Hotjar where you could like see what a user was doing on your website. Now there's AI involved and matching audiences. So it's definitely something to pay attention to. But anything else on this topic before we transition into the next? If not,
I think it transitions well, because that was going to be one of my next questions when we were talking about, the sort of type of retargeting that can be done is like, how real time can we optimize this?
So it's completely real time. So it's interesting. So again, this works across lots of different content. So the most challenging content is, let's say, user generated content, because we have no knowledge ahead of time. It's more dynamic content that's changing constantly. And essentially what the technology does is it uses AI to read and contextualize the page and understand what different sections of the page, what their content is about. And if a user ends up on a page that we don't have contextual data for, we essentially the AI immediately visits that page in a few hundred milliseconds and contextualizes it. And then everything else happens in real time. So when a user visits the page, the first time they visit it, we might not know what it is, but then within 100 or so milliseconds, we do. And then any subsequent visits to that page, their segments are immediately being updated in basically real time. And that's super powerful, especially in the user-generated content space, because sometimes, if you have a post that goes viral, it might get a majority of its traffic or a majority of its views in an hour or two, and then it might die off. So if you delay, you're going to lose a ton of value. So we just want to be super fast and super low latency.
Yeah, I think it was probably about a year ago, right, Jesse? Give or take, we had a podcast where we were talking about AI and ad targeting. We kind of felt like, the future of ad targeting was going to be all AI. Like we were going to sort of get out of the traditional audience groups, and everything would be targeted with different types of AI that were used to optimize ads and improve on targeting in sort of a lot of these sort of micro targeting strategies, because now you can do that with AI. And I think that we're getting closer and closer to getting to that point where the tech is enabling advertisers to do this.
Yeah, and that's on the targeting side of the equation. But there's also the creative or the offer side of the equation, which is also, I think, going to be probably go entirely to AI as well.
Yeah.
So the future of this might look like we identify the segment that a user, the AI micro segment that they're in. So, users interested in purchasing mattresses, and then the AI crafts an offer specifically for that user. And constantly optimize and tests new offers. So it might be on both sides of it.
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely.
That's really great. So then, like, does the website just like build itself based on the offer, like as the person's scrolling?
Quite possibly. I mean, it might write itself as well too.
I mean, that's great.
It's a matter of time for that too. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, real-time ad optimization. Can it do it for ads too?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think it's going to be doing it for ads and for the creative, right? Like,
Nice.
And if you have enough micro signals, a different, if somebody's looking at a memory foam mattress, let's say, for example, but we also know that they were looking at $10,000 bicycles or luxury watches. We might know that they should get a different offer for like a high-end luxury mattress versus somebody else who might also be interested in mattresses, but they were looking at, a discount bicycle that was on sale. We might be like, the AI might realize, oh, they should get a value-oriented offer. So I think all that's coming as well, where we're actually not just looking at these micro segments, or sort of where we're at today, but combining it with a bigger picture and combining it with AI to generate the offers.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's an ever-changing world, especially in ad tech. I think ad tech is one of the it seems like it's one of the fastest moving spaces, ad tech and martech, when it comes to AI. There's just so much going on, and it's amazing and challenging.
And I think that's because there's so much opportunity.
Yeah.
So when we talk about these different opportunities, it's like I call it a triple win, where you can improve the user experience dramatically. So imagine a user coming to the website, and in our previous example with mattresses, they're going to come to the website and see an offer that they're incredibly interested in. It matches their desires and their wants. So they're going to enjoy coming to that retailer's website more, and they're going to come back more often because they're seeing offers they're interested in. The retailer, from a merchandising point of view, is going to sell more product, which is a win for them, especially for the merchandising teams, and is also going to be able to offer more value to advertisers. So it's a win there. And then, of course, for advertisers or vendors, it's a huge win because their offers are getting in front of people that are interested in them. And the correct offer is getting in front of the correct person, so they're not wasting money on ad spend. So in terms of AI being used in ad tech, I think one of the reasons we're starting to see it so much is there's a huge opportunity to create value across the entire chain. And in some cases, we're going to see 30, 40, 50, maybe 100% lift that AI is going to bring. So the value's there, and I think that's where we're seeing, a lot of AI in ad tech.
I mean, AI was in ad tech before before ChatGPT was a thing.
Sure.
I feel like ad tech was leading with AI long before everyone else was playing with AI.
Yeah, and because it had like a very clear business use case, because you can lift the value of every ad impression, and even if you lift it 1% or 5%, it's a huge win, right?
Yeah.
And if we're talking about 50%, that's just massive.
Yeah, and it's also some place where you can test so easily, right? You can put, you can create a sort of an opportunity and create a theory, and you can test that theory within a day. You can, depending on what you're trying to do. It's so easy to get access to sort of the audience if you're large enough, or if you have a large enough audience. And I think that other industries, that could be very difficult, right? I think the whole test process in another industry could take a lot longer than in the ad tech industry. We're serving billions of ads every single day. So it's like, okay, let's test this theory. Okay, run 1 million ads. Okay, it didn't work. Let's run another 1 million ads with this, and let's run another 1 million ads. Boom, we found the solution.
That's right. Yeah,
we can do that so quickly in that environment where billions of ads are being run against millions of consumers. Where else can you do that?
And it's also easily reversible, so you can test it, and if the results are negative, in 5 seconds you can undo it, right? Yeah. Whereas if you build AI into other business processes or workflows, a lot of it is more of a one-way door. Like once it's integrated, you're kind of stuck with it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So we had a question from Layla. Are there risks of over automation or times when a human should override the AI?
So I think today AI is not perfect, and there's times when especially if you're not using like the greatest or the best AI, it's going to do goofy stuff. But that window is closing very quickly, and depending on the use cases, you're not going to really have that issue. So in the cases where we've employed it, we haven't seen that. But of course, you could imagine that you may want some oversight in the AI, especially if you're doing more bleeding edge, like novel stuff. But I think in the future, the AI is going to be doing very complicated optimizations, and a human is not even really going to be able to understand what the AI is doing. So it'll be kind of difficult to override it, and you wouldn't want to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we do in our business to sort of combat that and that sort of risk as far as the errors and quality are concerned is like, we're building audiences off of first party data with AI. And what we're doing is we're essentially getting sort of a score within that audience when it's built. And so we can know how accurate the accuracy level of sort of each of the consumers and how closely they fit the model. And so we just sort of set a cutoff and we say, okay, for this implementation, we're not going to use anything that doesn't match at 85% or greater. If it's
Right.
And that allows us to make sure that our target is as accurate as possible. And you can sort of tweak that, right? And so for each different application, you can say, okay, well, we have a little more leeway with this one. So let's, move the threshold to 80% or 75%, accuracy or whatever it is. But you can tweak that, accuracy level in a lot of ways, when you're digging in, to building the models and things like that, and how closely does it match the model. Now, that's one way that we sort of, combat the level of, are we going to over automate and hurt our performance because of that, just by looking at the accuracy levels too.
And the other thing you can do is actually use AI to essentially police itself. So one of the things we do is we have AI that constantly monitors what our AI is doing. And they're two separate systems, right? So, if something gets contextualized wrong, which we haven't seen in a long time because it's gotten so good now, the other AI is going to catch it and be like, oh, this didn't really work very well. So yeah, there's lots of powerful tools.
It's a good one. So let's make sure before we get too far into the episode, it's already 4:44, that we get to our third topic, because we also have tech stack still, but AI-powered audience profiling and predictive insights. What would you kick us off with on this topic, Rajiv?
So I think we've already touched on this a bit earlier, but we're really talking about using AI to build really deep customer personas and segments in really granular ways. So I think we sort of touched on this. Like, there's the simple version of it is building sort of the micro segments based on the behavioral patterns that we see for users on a website. We can then expand that into things like predictive segments. So predictive segments would be the mattress buyer would be the naive version because they specifically clicked on mattresses. But a predictive segment might be, someone's shopping for a stroller and baby clothes, and then predicting that they're going to be needing diapers and other baby items, right? So, and we can combine that with the traditional first-party data as well. So there's really a lot in terms of how you can build these segments, and we can bring in data from other audience systems through an open API, and we can also take AdButler first-party data and send it to other audience systems to create a bigger customer persona. So it could include the behavioral data. It could also include the more traditional first-party data. It can also include a predictive element. It could also include omni-channel data. So that might be in-store data. It might be newsletter data from email. It might be digital out-of-home data if someone has eye tracking data. So in terms of like audience profiling, it's really like anything's kind of possible. I know I just sort of said a lot, but really you're adding in this behavioral data into the bigger world of first-party data and using that to create these customer personas.
Yeah, it's something that we've been doing for a long time in sort of the third-party data world, and so it's it's good to see it moving into the first-party world as well. I think that going forward, that becomes more and more important, that people are figuring out and learning how to leverage their first-party data to do things like predictive insights, and our experience has been that it's been successful with the third-party data, and we all know that there's a lot of bad data out there in third-party data. First-party data tends to be more accurate, right? It has sort of less of the challenges where third-party data has, where you have challenges with how is that data being logged, how is it being shared, how is it being is it privacy compliant, is it what kind of data loss was there in the process, and sort of, I think when you're managing your first party data, you sort of typically have a better hold on all of those things. And so I think that using that for predictive insights is going to be, I think, in the future, more and more accurate and more more progressive in the ways that people can start to use that.
And we find that the more touch points you have and the more data that you have, the higher quality those predictive insights can be, or just the personas in general, if you do it in a smart way. So there's if you look at it and you have higher quality data over here and some lower quality data over here, there's ways where the lower quality data can pollute the higher quality data and you get an overall poorer result. But there's also ways, if you do it in a little bit different way, where you're able to improve the overall picture. So you just have to be a little bit smart on how you combine those different bits of data depending on their quality and their signal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Such a great point. Well, I guess this is a good time to transition into the tech stack portion of the show, Rajiv. So if you could tell us, what are some of your favorite tools in your tech stack?
Yeah, so we've talked about what we call the AI user segments, and that's really creating data via AI, and so that's definitely like one of the core pieces of the tech stack that we're talking about, and that works with the wider AdButler platform. So generally, generally with the tech stack, what we can do with the AdButler platform is it's an omni-channel tech stack that works across a bunch of different solutions. And this AI targeting works well with all of the different solutions. So it can depending on the publisher's needs, it can plug into programmatic. So we can use the AI user segments through our programmatic tech stack and enhance different programmatic bids. It can also plug into self-serve. So these user segments can be exposed to advertisers through our self-serve stack. And you're also able to create auctions around the different user segments. So you can create auction-like behavior for these different user segments in a way that could never be done before. So that's a really powerful integration with the tech stack. And you can also expose that through email advertising, sponsored products, and digital out of home, when we can segment users in different ways. So really, for the tech stack sort of end to end, the AI user segments can plug into any of these different solutions, and it's really like a box of Lego. So you can sort of pick and choose what you need and put it together to meet whatever your business needs or business goals are.
That's awesome. So what is that proprietary software then? Is there like a name, the tool?
Yeah, so I mean, these are all different solutions in the AdButler platform. We are not we're not really super into branding things. So our video ad server is called AdButler Video Ad Server. Our email ad server is called our email ad server. Our retail media solution is called the AdButler Retail Media Solution. And all of these different stacks all work together. So you can use, the retail media solution with self-serve, with the AI user segmentation. And what that would give you is exposing these user segments inside the self-serve platform. So an advertiser can log into the portal and specifically target these micro segments. They can do it in an auction-like format. So they could bid, you could imagine a vendor coming in and bidding for everyone that's expressed interest in televisions in the last 30 days. And it would create an auction around that. And then that can plug into our retail media solution, which could give you sponsored products, sponsored search results, product recommendations. And it all just sort of works together like pieces of Lego. So, one of the things that we're really conscious of doing is making it easy for people to get integrated with the AdButler tech stack, where you can come in at any given touch point. So you could come in and say, I'm not ready to use other pieces of the AdButler tech stack, but I'll use the self-serve solution. And then later on, come in and add in the AI user segmentation part. Maybe come in later and add in, shoppable video or video solutions. Or you could start with the shoppable video and later add on the self-serve. We've really consciously done that so that, when we talk about tech stack, it's often, it's a nightmare. If I want to use this new solution, I have to change my whole tech stack. We know that's an impediment to using AdButler. So we want to make it really easy where you can pick and choose these different pieces. And each piece will work with the wider ad tech world as best we can. So you can continue using whatever ad server you want and bring in our AI solution, or continue using whatever ad server you want and bring in our self-serve solution. And we play nicely with everyone. Despite other people maybe not wanting to play that nicely. Maybe that'll change with the recent DOJ ruling on Google today. If you guys saw that, but
no, I force them. Mention it really quick. What happened?
Yeah, so Google has mostly lost their ad tech antitrust case. So the Department of Justice had sued them for tying ad tech to Google Ad Exchange, which is the main part of the case, and they lost that case. So that was one of the very, for us, problematic closed gardens, where if you were using AdButler, you couldn't really access Google Ad Exchange, at least not nicely. So we've always played nicely with everyone, open APIs, open connections. A lot of people use AdButler for their entire ad sec solution, but a lot of other people use parts of AdButler and parts of other people. Now maybe with the Google, with this ruling, we'll see more of that openness, which I think is just good for, advertisers and publishers in general. Maybe bad for Google, but good for everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Rajiv, above and beyond AdButler, on the tech stack side, is there anything else that sort of helps you improve, your processes, your day? A lot of times people talk about Slack or some, creative programming solutions that they use or whatever it is.
Sure.
What other tools do you use sort of in your tech stack to help you, run your business and run your day? And the reason why we ask this is because a lot of people listening are like, hey, I want to, build a business just like these guys. I need to, improve how I run my day to day. And they'd love to hear sort of, what helps you kind of juggle everything that you do.
Yeah. So my background is more on the engineering side, less on the advertising side. So I'm a huge nerd when it comes to all the cool new technology. And so one thing we do on the software and the dev side is we're using a ton of AI to help write software now. So that's stuff like Cursor and these dev tools. I think I'm a huge proponent of that. It's something we push internally in the company. I tell, in our monthly town halls, I constantly tell everyone, if you it's like we're farmers and someone just invented the tractor. If you don't use the tractor, you're you're a dinosaur, right? Like it's not it's not going to work. So that's what we do sort of on the dev side, but also we've been adopting a ton of AI just across all the business processes. So one great example is we use Claude, which is one of the LLMs.
Mm-hmm.
And inside Claude, there's the ability to create projects. And what projects are is you can train a project on a particular topic. So you can upload all this information into it, and the AI will use that information when answering your questions. So what we did is we took all of the AdButler knowledge base, so all of our help documents that are online, and stripped them down and uploaded them. And then we took previous support tickets. So, we have a record of all the support tickets customers asked, put those in there. We put all of our sales decks in there. We put all of our marketing material in there. Anything we could find till we filled it right up. We went through and put in all of our developers. So when a developer makes a new feature, they have to write a little comment on what they did before they commit that feature to the code base. We put all those in there. And then now our sales teams use that trained AI to generate the first draft of emails or other content for users. So they've just been coming out with this really great emails that sometimes, because our platform is so big and has so much going on and it's constantly being developed, sometimes there's capabilities and features that the salespeople, especially if it's a newer salesperson, has no clue about. But now they stick it in the AI, and the AI knows, and it comes back with a great answer. So that's been amazing, and they can generate a very fast response in 5 minutes that otherwise might have taken them a half hour to write, and then the response they're getting is better. So that's one thing. One thing we've sort of done on that regard, but we use it across customer success. Even in calls. We'll have AI transcribe the call, and then that can go into the AI and can summarize what was said, figure out who committed to do what, generate follow-ups. So if you imagine you're on a Zoom call and people come up with different ideas, and people come up with you decide that John is going to do X and Bob is going to do Y. You can just take that transcript, put it into AI, and it'll come up with a to-do list for John and a to-do list for Bob with timelines and summarize the entire meeting, and then you can keep track of that and reference it again 6 months later. So, I could go on in terms of how we're using it for
awesome.
Quite a while, but it's been a game changer.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love Claude projects, and that's a great. Actually, I might steal that one from you. That's a great project to throw all the sales material in there, just all the support material, everything in there for the sales team to use. I love that. That's great sort of execution of projects. Claude is my go-to as well.
Yeah, I've signed up for every single LLM out there, and I just jump back and forth between them because I always want to see what's new. But yeah, Claude worked the best for that use case.
Yeah, awesome.
That is awesome. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure that some of the listeners are going to copy that and take that and use it for their own, their own businesses as well. Everyone really should. It just makes sense to put all your qualitative data into AI and let your team, utilize it that way. But Rajiv, this was a really great episode. Thank you so much for coming on. In closing, would you like to tell listeners how they could find you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn under Rajiv Khaneja. Also on X, Rajiv Khaneja as well. So feel free to connect on either of those platforms.
Perfect.
Yeah, well, thank you again, Rajiv, for joining us today. This has been a great call. And I really appreciate you joining us and sharing the information that you have shared. We look forward to hopefully getting to chat again.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
All right, I'll
Well,
check it out.
thanks, David. And before we go, audience members, we just want to invite you to get powered by BDEX and build your own authentic connections with your audience and drive unprecedented engagement. So just imagine harnessing the power of AI to craft your audiences. I mean, in marketing, that's a lot of the time the hardest part, right? Is finding your target market. Well, AI can help with that too. Over here at BDEX, we are equipped to help you. So we want to make sure that your marketing efforts hit the mark every time. And you can't do that without the right audience. So let's bring you closer to your goals. And we're eager to guide you. So just simply scan that QR code that you see on the screen. Or if you're listening on podcast, you can go to bdex.com and click on the Talk to an Expert button, and we'll be glad to guide you on your way. And also for anyone who's interested, our show is pretty much full for the year. I think we're booked through the end of November, so we've got a few more slots left for 2025 Deconstructing Data at 4:15 at this slot. So we do have Tuesdays open for paid opportunities if folks are interested. But if you want to get in on any of those last 2025 slots, now is the time. Otherwise, we hope to get you on a Tuesday. If you or anyone you know is interested, email us at info@bdex.com. And also just share your qualitative data with us so we can continue to make this show better for you. And with that, that's the end of the show. Thank you again so much, Rajiv.
Thank you.
Bye, thanks.
Bye-bye.